actual swing path and face to path are in a really good place, very consistent now.
So we're coming back here, checking over top bits, done irons in the past. But was that May time?
Yes, I came in 6th of May for the fitting. Didn't get the clubs till probably you expressed them through for me. No, when the others got nicked, you did.
Yeah, because of course the set was gone, wasn't it? Yeah. So great. So we'll have a check over the top of the bag, recheck that hybrid. I think with the swing what you've done, there's been quite a big change in the game as well. So great thing, like have a loosen up, and we'll have a bit of a chat whilst you loosen up as well.
Any club?
Anything you like at all. Yeah, anything at all.
Still trying to recover from being in there on Friday.
So after you loosen up, let's get the specs on that 3-wood, which is the new one. 5-wood.
The swing lines, when I say nice, I'm alluding to the swing lines is really nice. So that was 1.4 degrees inside to out. Face was very square and slightly up on it. So again, with a sense.
So what's the handicap going down to now?
That's faded because of the heel strike.
Well, interestingly, because I've only managed to get a couple of medals and qualifying rounds in, they've only dropped it by a shot at the minute, but I think it should be. This is going out live on YouTube, but it should be a couple more than that. But obviously, they can't take unqualifying rounds. So I would expect it to be dropping down to about 17 from what was 21. And Stuart upstairs reckons within 6 months he's going to have me down to about 10. And he reckons he's going to eat his hat if it isn't single digits within a year.
Got it. Because when you started seeing him July time?
Yeah.
3
lessons so far.
And so obviously the grip's got a bit stronger, which we looked at in the last fitting session, and then you developed that with Stuart. Other than that, what's been the progression of the particular keys from a swing standpoint?
So the first bit that we worked on was rotation and the hip. He got me doing the Swiss ball exercises, both on the way up and then on the way round.
Yeah.
The next thing was the arms, and he got the little elastic band.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd got that. And then, of course, I realised that I was working on my left arm, but actually it was the right arm. So the last thing we did was that he wants to see this right elbow below this arm.
Okay, yeah.
And that bit I've not necessarily fully mastered. I've got a little stick indoors, bamboo stick. And I video myself, and I'll show you if you want later on. You'll see what I mean.
Yeah, certainly when you consider where path was out to in last time, face open, it's quite a big change. Yeah.
You'll see. I mean, sometimes I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing.
So that'll continue for your whole golfing career. That's, In general shot pattern, now are you seeing, say, more, is the miss more of a push or more one where you just overdo it and overshape it now?
Overshape it, and then with the driver, I'm getting the odd one, and I must be going back to my old sort of up and down swing. I'm still getting the odd fade, which cost me about 4 shots last week.
Yeah, such a different line through the ball.
I'm just enjoying, I mean, I'm striking the ball a lot better.
I think one of the things that we were chatting about briefly before starting was saying when you consider what you've done in terms of the work with Stuart from a swing point of view and then the fitness work as well. There's an awful lot that you've physically changed a lot since we last saw you 6 months. Well, is it as much as 6 months back? Probably not 5 months back. So
May. I
yeah.
started, I think, with Kate upstairs before you'd moved downstairs, mid-April. I've lost over 10, 11 kilos in weight. Diet has completely changed. The fitness work, I mean, I can tell physically in terms of strength. I don't get fatigued on the, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just about losing weight. I don't lose concentration on 16, 17, 18 because I'm still not knackered.
Yeah.
Recently came in, last 5 holes, finished 5 straight pars on my home course, which I've never done. I've never had more than 2 pars on the trot probably. Last Monday I played at Bramley, got 8 pars in a round. So the game is there.
Yeah.
It's now managing it.
Yeah.
Because if you can do 8 or 5 straight pars, you must be able to get there or thereabouts. So significantly different game.
Yeah. And just the way, I think it's not just the swing line as well. So with the fitness work, it's the way you're physically able to move as well. The two, really, really combine. And then, like we're seeing, shot there, a little bit of draw, good efficiency, good angle of attack. You're getting to change the path as much as you have and retain that downward angle of attack with the irons is great.
So, I mean, the
so
biggest
it's nice.
difference. I mean, I played in the final, which I won at the club, as you know. That I had a caddy there. And just having someone manage the game, because the ability is one thing, but just that focus for 18 holes to think straight is probably where I'm losing shots on the course now.
It's the decision side of it. I always feel I can handle making a physical error. I hate it when I make a mental error on the course because everyone can, we can make the right decisions. Based on the situation we're in, but when you make the wrong one, you compound another area. I just find that infuriating. I can handle a rotten shot, but a bad decision's always, It's amazing the difference that can make in terms of, making a bogey rather than the double, keeping a round going, saving a shot here and there. But it's the momentum side of it as well, I think. Yeah.
I'm now getting bad shots, getting back on track, and at worst might bogey. It's making a big difference. Just confidence, having the right club in your hand and knowing that you're going to hit it. Yeah. It's not been an easy summer hitting off virtually concrete at times. So it's going to be I find it a lot easier off lush surfaces.
Yeah.
Alignment is another thing because I'm used to my old shot shape.
Well, that's quite interesting. You're seeing, the shot shape you're getting now. And I've gone through a similar thing. I used to hit much more of a right to left and hitting it much straighter. And I find it hard to aim at a pin on the left of the green because I've never had to. I've always had to aim 10 yards right of it and then sling it in. And that's almost the hardest bit actually when you get used to seeing the ball coming in differently. There was a bit on with the ladies golf yesterday. Lydia Coe's changed her shot pattern from left to right to left, and they're saying how difficult it is to see. You get so used to seeing a start line in a certain place, and actually setting yourself in position to see it, have it coming in the other way. It's really tough.
And if the wind is doing certain things, you've got to go even further the other way, and that mentally is a real challenge. I mean, and there have been times when I knowing that, made the wrong decision, and then I've ended up way in trouble to the left because I should have gone even further right. But I mean, you see that shot shape is starting to do that. Yeah. It's more exaggerated probably as I go up to the 4-iron. Right. Yeah. To the point where if I needed to draw something around a corner on a dog leg, it'll be that 4-iron that comes out. Got it. Okay. Interesting, that 4-iron plays very differently to the Honma one that it replaced, which was the previous iteration. Topped. And what I have seen with these clubs is even mishits aren't that short and they're not that far off target, which I find really, they're very forgiving in that regard.
I think relative to the Bridgestones before, it's certainly better off centre as a head than those were. Yeah, nice swing.
according to Stuart, I mean, he reckons the alignment bit will just take care of itself with time as you get used to where the ball's going to go.
Oh, for sure, yeah. It's you'll get. And actually, like that swing in particular, you can see is just starting to kind of relax into the swing a little bit more, getting a bit of a softer shot shape. So your path on that one, 2.8 from in to out, face to path 2.5 close. So you club face to targets half a degree offline, half a degree open. But you can see it's a little softer through your arms as you start to loosen up and the body gets going. And then just a really nice neutral pitcher flight, best part of 150 carry, nearly solid 7-iron numbers there. But nice soft shot shape, which is nice.
I mean, again, upstairs, Stuart, in his mind, the 7 should be going. Historically, with rollout, I'd be getting maybe 150. He's thinking 175 is probably about the number.
I think that's going to be something where, depending on where club speed develops to, currently for a 76-mile-an-hour swing, a best part of only 150 carries, right where it should be. If that creeps up to, if you were to get that to more like 80 miles an hour, then you're going to be up at, comfortably up at 160 carry. So to get it up to kind of 170, 175, then you've got to be pushing. You've got to be a good, probably about a 10 miles an hour on from there. But it's once the technique's there, you can start to put more speed into it. The shots stay more online, but also you're just every shot you hit, you're gaining ball speed, gaining distance, rather than the more offline you are. You might swing faster, but end up with a worse ball flight. So for that kind of swing, you put in any extra speed with the same quality of swing there, it's just going to go further and down the target line. So, so yes, obviously have as many looseners as you need, and we'll go up top end, then we'll work our way back down. So we'll work our way back down and check out that hybrid as well.
So what James did for me, that was on the draw bias setting. He's neutralised the shaft and the weight.
Yeah, perfect.
Which I requested because with the swing changes, what I was finding was I was hooking, well, they looked hooky to me. I was sort of getting the draw bias of the club and the hosel and this exaggerated. And what I'm realising, I think, is that when I'm upstairs, Stuart's, everything's exaggerated.
Yeah, definitely.
Deliberately.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And I was trying to repeat that outdoors, and I was getting sort of bananas.
Yeah. And the club that was set up to get it neutralising the shot shape you had previously, exactly, yeah. So
what I'm getting now with a good swing is actually, it's more or less a pretty dead straight flight with it. It doesn't draw very much with that.
Yeah.
But when I'm relaxed, like you say, it's going, I mean, with dry conditions and tailwind, the longest drive I had this summer was 315 yards, which from someone who's hitting 210.
That's like change of scene. And what ball are you playing on the course at the moment? I'll make sure we get those ones.
333s mostly, or Q stars, is it?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I don't think, I will play almost anything I find if it's looking nice.
Yeah, we're getting into that time of year where it almost, especially on London clay, doesn't matter because it's going to plug. Wherever it goes, it's going to stop quick. We'll use we've got the 333s here. Let's make sure they're all marked up. And again, have a few swings with the driver just to get that swing going, and then we'll get a bit of data. Tee height, we'll check out.
Normally use the pink ones.
Yeah, okay.
That should be about right.
That'll be a little high. That's going to be probably more.
So I find I'm using a slightly more open stance with the driver.
And have you seen a change in pitch? I'm assuming ball flight's come down.
It's the lower trajectory, tends to be much more penetrating, and I mean that's a bit fadey. What I'm finding is I was probably sort of aiming at the door. It would probably go at the needle in the back.
Okay, I mean that one's actually only fadey due to the face to path was closed, so it's got a little bit heel side. So actually swing line was a slight draw swing, which is nice. Very neutral, 3 from the inside, 1 degree closed. Okay.
So I've got a lesson with Stuart in a few days. I'll be quite interested to see what he thinks is improved or not. And I'm sure I've picked up some bad habits again.
Oh, I've got to I need to see him next week. Get my swing line back on track.
Underneath.
Let's just take that a little. So I slip back into sliding off the ball and getting lateral, which is no good for a straight shot. Yeah, I mean swing path is not out to in at all. So it's considering where we were last time.
But you can see why I'm
good
sort of
degrees.
got a more open stance, because unless I turn that way, and this is the alignment thing,
Yeah.
they will all go that way.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I feel like I need to be teed up like that, and
Okay.
just feels weird in my head.
It's not massive. I mean, face to path isn't massively off. We'll get kind of 2 or 3 or 4 just to get a good base.
If I stand normally, what I feel in my head is normal, we'll see what difference it makes. Maybe I've got under that.
It's got a little kind of nearer the. Actually, we're if anything, we're just a little close to that. That's all right. Pop them undone. Just got more towards the inside of the head. That one. That's why it just popped up. Yeah, a little at the heel. It's interesting when you've squared off. It's not like the swing path's actually quite a long way from in to out. It's just getting out basically out of about there, kind of right out of the kind of the top heel there. So the other ones were more centered strike, but path's gone a fair bit from in to out. So I mean that last one was 8 degrees. Previous one was 6, whereas the earlier 2 were 3 degrees into out and then 1 degree out to in, so actually sort of much more neutral. That's probably where some of the right hand side is where the path's gone, as they just exaggerated a little too much from the inside, and then you've got to work the face a long way to square that off. So by setting up a little open, it's just putting your path down the target line more, so you've got less to do to square that up. So it's probably where you've migrated. That's the kind of thing, like Stuart said, your setup position will sort of migrate to where you start to get that neutral start line, and as the swing line settles in a little bit more, the more you bed it in, you'll probably find that the path will neutralise a little bit to a neutral setup as well. It's just where you've been working it so hard to get away from the out to in path. As the club's got longer, it's got a little bit more round behind you. So hence just that development in setup. But that's something that as it continues to bed in, the need to do that, I would say, will probably reduce quite a bit.
So I'll be standing squarer over time.
Yeah. Okay. So like with the iron swing, that's all very neutral. I think with the driver, just it being a bit longer, it's just letting you whip it inside a little bit more. But that'll all quieten down for sure. So just do a couple more with that, just to get a marker. So just set up a little, you're actually a little bit more closed on that one. So just got the stance pointing a bit right. Pop that down. Okay. Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting one in terms of from where we had that set up previously, which basically the setup of the shaft is not overly light but back weighted, basically anything to help get that toe through and get it squared off as much as possible. But actually now you've changed that swing line around and got more rotation to it. Like to me, it just looks like you're losing the bottom end a little bit. So whereas with the irons, you can see that kind of drop and flow and release through the weight of the club taking you through. The iron shafts have the bounce a little bit more in the lower half, and that's right up under the grip end, which previously was essentially firefighting. In fact, there was no release, as people call it. It was working across an open face, and now you are getting it going that way and more from in to out. there isn't quite the weight in the bottom end to create that release pattern for you. Hence, probably a little bit of an overcompensation each way.
Yeah.
So the club doesn't. We kind of want the club to swing you a little bit. Now that your technique's nowhere near out to in, you're using that last from 4 degrees into out, we can use the weight of the club to get the timing right rather than to firefight a technical issue.
So this hence me saying to you that the irons, if you said put it here, put it there, I'm just happy to pick up.
Yeah.
The only club at the top end of the bag that and this is the only one that you've built out of that bag, I can make it work,
Yeah.
but I do feel like I'm making it work at times.
Yeah, there's just a bit less of a natural flow to it. You know, with the irons, you can see you can just stand there and move, and the clubs will come with you. That one, now that you're in a better place, we actually need to just shift that weight around so that it complements that inside, you know, shallower line through rather than down and over the top. Where it's literally anything we could do to get that toe through the ball first to stop its sliding, whereas now it's actually the opposite. We could do with a bit more in the bottom end for you to hit against, to use the weight to create that kind of catapult through the ball. So, yeah.
I mean, if it helps you with anything, this is still way better than that off the shelf.
So with the 3-wood specs, looking at that, so it's probably, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, that one is a little bit more head heavy. It's not heavy as a shaft setup, but the balance is a little bit more bottom end weighted. So it may be that's just gone a little too far and that you've then got to force it. So that's up, the 5-wood's up at best part of D3, D2.9. Irons around the D1 mark, 1 and a bit. And driver currently, it's shorter, but also around the C9 mark. But it's where the weight is in the shaft for me that I think is
It's higher up, isn't it?
Yeah, the HB, the high
balance, yeah.
balance point. So, but so your swing lines changed so much from last time that it's like a different. It'd be like fitting a completely different golfer stood in front of me to the previous sort of setup we did with it. So I will get. Use that. I'll get just like a current version head just to normalise, and then we'll just kind of pretty much start from scratch with it.
Yeah, cool.
So, need to remind myself what loft we're. 10-5, yeah.
It's going to throw, if it's recording it as a driver, it's going to throw it, but that was just the 5-wood.
Okay,
I was
yeah.
aiming at the needle, so when it's behaving and I'm relaxed, it does go with that
Yep.
slight draw path.
So I'll just and modify that. Got it. Right. So what I'm going to do first is I want to just take it back to a more neutral. I want to see if we go back to a more neutral length, what that actually does. So take the shaft weight down, leave a little bit more balance in the bottom end. Not tip weighted, but just less counterweighted. So go back to a standard length and just see this is a kind of a complete kind of normalised marker point.
I think the length, and back then, even with that high back, we were fighting essentially all that spin I was getting. And I mean, I don't know, everything was going like that. So we're probably losing 30, 40 yards just in the air.
Oh, yeah. And so part of the length going shorter, there's just less club to get open and behind you, and you know, the longer it is with an out twin and an open face, the more left to right you're going to get. So everything there was designed to, you say, firefight that right hand miss, whereas we can go a lot more neutral now. Actually, put a little bit more weight on that head. Can you see if there's any lead tape in that end bay, just a roll of that? There should be a little bit, hopefully, in that end bay. Lovely, thank you very much. So back up at starting at full 45 inch rather than 43.5 where current one is. And whilst dead weight in the shaft is a little bit lighter, it's not dragging everything up the grip end of things. So there we go. So basically, current version of that head, just as I said, a start point. Don't want to change too many things to start with. So we'll see. Partly whether going longer, whether that makes it a bit unwieldy or not. Okay, got that one. Because I think the first bit to look at really is going to be, does the longer length make it more likely to go out to the right? Because it may well be that actually that a little bit less than the full 45 inches may well still be the right way to go, and there are plenty of top players in the world who've played shorter than 45 inches. Okay. So path there. Let's see the one more of that. Thank you very much. Okay, still need a bit more in that bottom, and that's just still a little bit light. Just see, you're able just to flick that a little bit too much. So I'm just going to take the dead weight up a little bit more. Okay, so path staying into out through all of those. So it's not like it's changed. It's not changed your ability to get that inside to out action.
Maybe just a little bit more confidence inspiring.
A couple of grams heavier. A little bit more on the bottom end.
What would you recommend?
So get a
Where you are in your journey right now, I would be inclined to go down.
get a couple.
It's just going to give you forgiveness. You're not an ounce of distance.
So that's how it's course playing at the moment.
It's a completely different place. Just there's green grass everywhere, which all summer hasn't been there. But really well, actually. We had some work done on the greens about a month and a bit ago.
It's reassuring how quickly it comes back, isn't it? You think how brown the courses were, burnt out, and now they're all lush and green again.
Nature is incredible how quickly, like you said, they've gone back. And then the greens at the moment, they've been lightning quick for our course.
So I've not pushed dead weight up too far, just pushed a little bit of weight down the bottom end.
That feels better.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, still a little. I'm going to put a little bit more in, so I can still see just overpowering that a little bit. So, but definitely less flip, putting a bit in the bottom end. So it couldn't be further from the balance point we needed to use last time. So quite a significant change. Thank you. Okay, so it's pushing that dead weight up a few grams now. Okay, I know a little bit heely, but that was definitely a step forward in terms of, you see the club start to drop in, which means you can then keep developing your speed using the weight of the club rather than having to almost sort of back off of it. Okay. So you set up just aiming a little bit to the right. So face is only a little bit open there. So just square the stance off a little bit to that. So we're just a little bit closed. A little more to the left. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Okay, that's a better contact. Count a bit lower, that's a better contact. Okay. All right, I'm going to push that weight up slightly more. That's getting closer. So come out a little low and stayed a bit right because it's just a little bit in front and on top of it. But don't mind that because we're starting to see it flow better. You know, ball speed's starting to creep up. And if we get that shallowed off rather than just the angle of attack's a little bit on the downward, start to get that shallowed off, then it's going to launch higher, spin less, and then distance will really kind of kick on. But starting to see definitely a better flow of the club for sure. Putting that little bit more weight back in, bottom end, and we're back up at basically 60 odd grams. Where your current one being short of the base weight's at 65. But a totally different place the weight is. So I'm just going to push that a little bit further. Sorry. I think just over 60.
Am I wrong? Obviously, when I first came like 10 odd years ago, that spin was up at about sort of 5,000–6,000.
Every chance it would have been. Yeah, certainly 4.5, 5, certainly. And that's really one. That's then one of your deliveries, which is a little bit steeper. The previous one was only 1 degree down. So if you get that kind of contact and shallow it off, you're going to see the spin drop down. I mean, really, I think there's. Whereas last time there was kind of pretty much no way we could get the spin where we wanted to. This time, you're line through the ball so much better, so much squarer, that it's not going to take an awful lot to get the, if you can get sort of settled sweeping it a little bit more, then the spin's going to come right down to where we need it to be.
Obviously, it's slightly, the shaft is different by design to what fitted before there, but then it will certainly help you consistently with whilst you're away.
Okay. Just better angle of attack there. Swing. Okay. That's nice. I'm intrigued. Where was that? Speed with the. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, pushing it back up a little bit more. There's no real change in ball speed. That one, a little bit shallow, squared it off. We can see the spins in the mid twos there. So that then, the better that angle of attack gets. If that gets more to the 1 degree down, or even dead flat, it'll launch a bit higher and spin a bit less and just go further.
I bet it's roughly the same speed, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you can lose speed going lighter because you can't use the weight to drive against and develop the speed against. So if you overpower, you've then got to back off to get back to that equilibrium. So heavier sometimes makes you work a little bit harder and therefore get so club speed up a little more. Okay, let's push it up another couple of grams. I'll come back to that one. Push it just a few more there. my initial thought was whether we'd need to drop a little bit of shaft weight to allow us to have a bit more on the bottom end so that it doesn't get stuck. But actually, as we've got the weight there, you can see as we've added the weight and added the weight back up, the connections got better and better. So it's not really a case of dropping any dead weight from where we are there. It's just getting it, you're now getting used to using the weight in it rather than having to kind of back off it. So we'll find where we top out. So that's dead weight the same as this one. It's actually, it's the non-high balance version of that. So the kind of the vertical is a standard one.
Standard length?
Yeah, standard length on these as well. Yeah. It may well be that, for example, you might be able to say, okay, let's take a ½ inch off, possibly, but not 1.5 inches like we did last time. Okay, solid. That's solid. That's, I think, the longest one so far. The club speed's up a little bit more again. That's good. Just got a little. Okay, I might just,
Got under it.
Just to caught the sort of effectively just below the ball. It's actually swing path, angle of attack and path, really nice. Just yeah, it's still high in the face. That's all. Good swing. Just not quite as clear. A little bit on the heel side, but again, good line through. Okay. I don't think I want to go heavier, but I think we're getting close to being, because that first one in particular there, you can see ball speed, 133. So it's only slightly down, 2 degrees down. So it's a strongish flight, but again, spin's in a good place. So the run out's starting to get consistent. It's starting to allow you to kind of hit against and time and be nice and positive with the swing, which now you're on that inside out arc. You're turning through the back of the ball, so you've got a little bit more guts to hit against it with. Rather than say out to in, we need to get you almost casting it to square it off. Whereas now actually, you can really see you start to use the club to kind of hit through the ball rather than at the ball. Really, really different pattern there. Okay, that's right. So I'm gonna, yeah. So I like kind of where we are on weight. It's going to get 1 or 2 others just to cross-reference with. So I almost don't want to, with your only 3 lessons or so in, with the swing develops taking place, with you doing the fitness work, I don't want to go too safe. I want to better challenge you a little bit, because the better the swing line gets, the more used to making that swing line you get, the more we've got to fit for the better moves, because those are going to become the standard ones. Rather than,
you don't want to replace it within another couple of years if you can help it.
Yeah, right? Rather than fit for the kind of we don't need to make it too forgiving in terms of timing.
I'm good, thanks.
So rather than, we don't need to be fitting for the slightly less than where we want it swing. I want to kind of fit you for the well-timed one. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit more weight on the head with that. Just a little bit. Let's pop a bit of lead tape on that. Just add half a swing weight point or so. Just see that bottom end got away. There's clearly a ball stuck up there from a previous fit.
It's like the old
It
badminton
must have
courts.
gone up and rattled up that ear. See, actually, I'll take that one doesn't swing quite as well.
You see them all the time in the badminton courts, the shuttlecocks all stuck up there.
Yeah. Back, get that out of there. Get one, swap that, I get one other. This is interesting, that last one was, it was similar weight, but 1 or 2 grams less heavy, and just wasn't there for you. So, okay, I'll put that. That's going to need that little bit extra on the head as well. There we go. Not bad. No, right, still not as good as that earlier one. Right.
That was a shame. That was a bit of a shame because we left the face open there, but we hit it on that angle. We got the additional ball speed, so you hit that on 221.
Okay, let's just put that back in. So which knockout was the win?
It's called the Fitzgeorge. It's men's singles match play. It's normally about 5 rounds. This year ended up being 7 rounds. So many entrants.
I guess like most other courses, yours has got a lot busier.
We've
last
got a
couple of
waiting
years.
list. First time in, well, since I've been there. For 7 day, I mean, you can't get 7 day membership at the moment.
So a little more down on that, but definitely a little bit stronger timing through the shot. So just hitting, basically just catching up just on the down
way down.
strike a little bit.
Maybe that might be the stance.
Swing line nice. I think that's just called a little out the heel. Yeah, just a
Well,
little high and out the
I
heel.
put it further in
Okay.
my left foot, so just
Yeah, so you strike was just a little high, just give yourself a fraction further from the ball. It's
Okay.
definitely, so you see club speed creeping up, back up with this one.
back towards 92.
That one 93, that last one.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's just, I think where this is that bit longer, it's just getting used to standing just a touch further away. And that, 'cause that last one was only 1 degree down, it's much better angle of attack. Something like that.
That's
Yeah.
just
so-
slightly further away from it there.
Yeah, so that one then, yeah, contour, still a little higher on the face, but we've gone from previous one being, but kind of 2.5 mil or 23 mil out the heel, a couple of centimetres out the heel to 4 mil out the toe. So much more centred strike, much more centred. So for one that wasn't quite, there's still a bit more ball speed to come out of it. That's then 230 dead down the middle. Definitely going back to this shot is a much better time. You see where you and the club are much more in sync. That one 3.5 from the inside, pathwise 1 degree closed face. So very soft shot shape. Yeah, it's a much better flow to this. So again, maybe just a little bit out the inside of the face, but you know, hasn't lost too much. I'm gonna have a look at heads of this. I'm just gonna change heads slightly. So the bits that'll help, you know, as you settle things down. I mean, that's great. That combination of path and face to path, and those last couple in particular, you know, are just little soft. If everything centres off a little soft draws, that last one maybe you're going to go to left centre, but it's not the face to path being less than path. It's not going to loop on you. It's just where the angle of attack stays a little bit down. That's where we're seeing the strike just a little up the face. So if that settles back into being kind of like that one, you know, 1 degree down is absolutely fine. Then with that kind of swing, as it shallows off, you're just going to see ball speed pop up because there's another 7 or 8 miles an hour ball speed potential there. But then the spin's going to come down. So you know, if you take, well, even that one, there's another. If you get that to 2,500, but then pick up the other 8 odd miles an hour ball speed, then you're going to be a good 15, possibly 20 yards further up. And that's without anything exceptional here. That's with exact club speed and a slightly shallower delivery, and then say 250 odd, without it being a firm, fast fairway. So, but definitely that bit extra weight, a bit extra in the bottom end. You can see with the last few starting to get that path and face to path starting to be much more consistent. There's the odd one that's turned over. I think part of that is where it caught high and heel, just turns the face in and just overdrew a little bit. But otherwise, you know, path and face to path are either matching, generally speaking, matching or a little bit less than, which is great. So, but we'll get a slightly different head style to see if we can just up that ball speed a little bit. So I'll get a couple. Look at the stealth.
Yes, that's the carbon head, isn't it?
It's a really interesting one because I think again the stability element's very good. It's whether with the tendency to get a little bit squeezed. That's the one point where with the face being lighter. That weight spread a little bit. It's whether it kind of loses that little bit of ball speed or similar ball speed to this. It should be decent for spin. It's whether we can, or it's whether it needs a slightly more, for want of a better phrase, of traditional structure and not drag too much weight back. But they're all going to be, at least as forgiving as the Epic now. And when that came out, it was incredibly forgiving head. Okay, I'm just going to take, that's just it's a little heavier than normal, that, so just going to take a couple of grams out of it. So I'm hoping it's a little heavier than normal. Not too much. I'll just so I can control it. There is a lighter one of those. Just so I can control it, I'll just. Cause I like the balance where it was at the Callaway head. Sits in the halfway house. We'll just pop that back. Okay, there we go. A little lower on the face, that one, okay. Very straight. Okay, great ball speed on that. So that's then got the kind of potential ball speed that we want to see. So we're up at 134, so at a 90 mile an hour club speed, 134 ball speed, whereas you've been up at 93 before. So you put another 3 miles an hour ball speed, another 5 or 6, so 3 miles an hour club speed, 5 or 6 ball speed, then you're up at 140. I'm going to add a bit of loft to that because just knock that flight down a little bit more than we'd like, but spins in a good place, so good angle of attack on that as well. So it's either, it'd be interesting to see whether by adding a bit of loft, does it just get everything back up to a better place, or actually does the tailor head just knock the flight down a little bit too much for you? Because spin proportion's in a good place there.
Put it up the top there.
Slightly behind it, yeah.
Yeah.
Just got a little in, slightly deep in behind, thank you.
Same again.
A little high up the face.
Yeah, that's what I felt.
Yeah, just that little bit. Let me see. Let's just make sure and tender. Okay. I think it's one of those where when you get it over it and it comes out low, you get lots of ball speed, and if because of where they're going lighter on the face, it puts the CG a little bit lower. So it's almost either a little bit too high above the CG when you square it off, or when you get on top, it comes out very, very hot ball speed, but very flat. So just a little where they've taken weight out the front, it's just moved it around a little bit too much. So, okay. We'll go to something where the structure of the head's a little less exaggeratedly weighted. Change the weight in the back. Just slightly heavy. So weights, which is good.
And different,
She is good.
different spanners, right?
They're not too bad with most of them. They're not quite as bad as mobile phone chargers. There are quite a few of the general wrenches that go in the bottom end. 90% of them are the same. They've got slightly different torques, but they all fit one another. So, okay, there we go. So that's the current Titleist head. Okay, so that's straight away back to a more neutral launch and spin. So
With that sort of head compared to the Stealth, I mean.
I think looking at how that was coming off the face, I can only, say slightly higher on the face that last one, but I can only assume where they've removed, it's about 40% of the face weight. So that puts drop the screws. Just take those bits off. So if you're removing all that weight from the face, depending on which one you want to use, if removing all the weight from the face, then essentially what happens is the weight's got to go, if it's light crown, light face, it's got to go down and back. So if you've got an element of coming in downward, all that weight of the back's cutting across it. So there are heads that historically the Titleist has always been very good for somebody to just squeeze it a little bit because they've never gone as extreme on lighter face, lighter crown as other brands. So whilst you could argue that's made them a little bit less hot, a little spinnier than some, actually when you get that slightly downward strike, the weight, the CG sitting a little higher still connects with the ball rather than cutting underneath it. So they've traditionally been very good for someone with a slightly downward angle of attack.
That was lower on the face, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that was right out the heel, that one. So that's being a little close to it, that was right out the neck. Okay, so again, a little heely these two, but it's a much more, it's interesting, it's sort of similar to the Callow, but it's a more consistent pitch of flight. So those last two strikes have been just a bit on the, or that last strike a bit on the inside of the face. So he's dropped a little bit of ball speed, but the spin hasn't flared, which is good. But the launch and spin is much more consistent.
That's
Not
down.
low, high, low, high. Yeah, club speed down a little bit on those couple. I mean, that first one there, you can see we're at 90 odd, and again in that kind of 13 mid 2, so quite a nice ball flight. But with the strike just a little higher at the face, it just lost a little bit of ball speed. Okay, so I might just think in terms of head. Just going to compare some of this. I want to compare where we were with the Callaway head. I just want to cross-reference that. So that's the problem with the Stealth. It's either, put that back on, either an 8-degree launch, one was at 3, or a 16-degree launch. And the low launch were really good on spin, but then lost a load of carry. Whereas back into the Titleist, it's 2.5, 2.9, 2.9. You know, the reasonable hits are 13, 13.5, 12.7 on launch. So a much more consistent pitch of flight. Similarly, the more kind of solid ones with the Callaway, that first one came out a little bit lower. So good ball speed, good spin, ran out that little bit more. Those two just popped up a little bit and lost a bit of ball speed. So it's just finding that combination of ball speed and that mid launch. So let's think head-wise, that just wasn't quite as hot on ball speed. Thinking through. Pop that to the back for the moment. Go back to that Callaway. Because construction is not dissimilar to the Callaway. We'll see where the Cobra comes in. Generally haven't needed quite as much loft on this head as some. So. See how that feels to swing. It may be just a fraction on the heavier side, but see how that feels. higher up the face, but yeah, okay, that one's spun. Right, we'll get same kind of thing as the TaylorMade, but that's just popped it. All right, go back to that colourway. That's the first time I've seen that spin on, so a little bit on the inside of the face, but none of the others flared it quite that much. Straight, oh, nice swing, straight A ball speed back up.
It just feels better.
And, yeah, and it's interesting, just those little changes in centre of gravity position. I mean, that one again, straight away we're at 133 ball speed. Really nice launch and spin, nice sort of strong going ball flight. Still a little down onto it, but you know, it's not right out of the middle, but just above centre, so actually keeps it nice and efficient. But immediately ball speed back up. And it's a nice strong flight. I mean, it's one of those things where if you take the path and face to path is really nice. That's ended up 1 foot offline, which I think we can forgive you for. And it's only got 9 yards of shot shape, which is less than the 2 bays width. So it's really not a lot of shot shape on it. So if the angle of attack continues to develop and you sort of shallow it out a little bit more, it might just be a case of, you know, beauty with the Callaway's is the hosel, the cogs you can, like the current you can adjust and not have to move the grip around, but it may be a case of just putting an extra degree of loft on, because as you shallow off, the spin can come down a little bit, but equally then you launch it a little bit more. But if we're getting that kind of number, it's like that first one there, those sorts of numbers with a slightly downward angle of attack, then as that softens a bit, then the ball speed creeps up those other few miles an hour, it only goes a little bit further. But interesting, straight away back with that, that's the strongest set of numbers we've seen.
That's got some future proof built into it.
And it has. I think we're going. Part of it is that it might be a very slight tweak to the balance side of it. But actually, if you take that swing, the only thing missing, if you'd call it that, is it's on a slightly downward strike versus a flat or fractionally upward. You get that, then everything's travelling through the line of the shot rather than still that little bit of a downward glance where you lose a few miles an hour ball speed, but then it launches it higher, will keep the spin in the same kind of place, sort of carry further and just run out the same amount. So you're just gaining distance. And from there, from that path line, the more you relax into it and the more gym work you do, you don't necessarily need to hit it harder, but you'll start to move quicker. And with such a neutral delivery line there, there's so little shot shape on it that actually it's just, nothing else needs to change. It's just the pitch of the swing rather than the complete line and path of it. So it's interesting going back to it straight away. There's a gain straight away. You can just see everything just collected the ball a little bit better. I'll put the loft up a bit just to see where that goes now. I don't know how much of it was whether you, from a visual point of view, do you like the way it sets up, or more just it just felt more comfortable to swing?
No, so, I mean, weirdly, when I first came here 10 years ago, I had a brand in my head, and I left with something completely different. When I came to see you a few months ago, I didn't have any brand in my head at all. I just wanted a decent set of clubs because I knew brand didn't matter. And today, I didn't have anything in my head. I don't particularly look at the head of the club in that way. Yeah. I mean, there are some that do offend, but not many. So no, it wasn't that at all. It's the way I'm hitting it.
Yeah. again, nice and straight, very commercial. Let's see why. My gut feel is that the initial loft we had of that is the right one for now, and it's whether may or may not need to change down the line, but whether that needs to develop as the angle of attack shallows out, we'll see down the line.
Doesn't feel as good.
Let's pop in. Let me just change it back to the setting.
It's launching a lot higher, isn't it?
Yeah, those will just popped up. Maybe got a little bit more at the heel side, but I think I'd rather see if you're a little bit down at a slightly stronger flight, because that way you maintain the ball speed.
Yeah, it's a great feeling hybrid.
It just feels
It's
better.
better in that lower loft position.
Yeah, it feels better to me as well. I don't know whether that's psychological. I mean, to give you an idea, I was aiming at the needle there.
I mean, that one actually, because swing line again, it actually like that one there, 4 from the inside, 1 a bit closed, 4 from the inside, 1 a bit closed. That one was just a little bit just on the heel, so it's just held and geared and spun a little bit. But that's just, again, where you're 43.5 inches there, and we're up pushing 45 inches now. So that's just getting, from a swing line point of view, we don't need to put a compensatory factor for the club in there. That's just a case of getting used to having a slightly longer club, because we saw a few shots back when you connect with it, it's then straight down the middle with a little bit of a draw. But I think the slightly lower loft position is just it's going to feel a little bit more solid. Just the ball's coming out a little bit flatter, a bit more of a directness of strike and to ball flight. So go a little bit more lofted. It just pops it up the face a little bit more, and I think, say, down the line, possibly if you get more towards a sort of 1 degree down or flat, it may then be a case of just needing to add a bit of loft just to get a little bit extra, sort of stay at the top of the flight a little bit longer, if the spin drops a little bit too low.
And I'll know
it
that
may
because
not be
I'll
the
see it
case.
just
Yeah, you'll see it start to, it just won't want to stay at the top of the flight. Unless you really catch it, it'll stay there, or it'll just have a little bit of a fall out the sky at the end. It'll have a kind of slight rainbow flight to it. But so I think what you like to see is spin staying in the lower end of the twos, but your launch angle will go up as the angle of attack gets from 2 or 3 degrees down, gets more towards 1 and more towards flat. You're going to naturally deliver 1.5, 2 degrees more loft. So that 11.8 launch angle goes to 12.5, 13. And if we can keep the spin probably kind of between 2.2 and 2.5. If it goes on the lower end, then yes, you'll lose a little bit of carry, but then it runs the rest. If you get it up to sort of 13 launch and 2.5 on spin, then it'll carry a bit more, and you end up, generally speaking, equidistant. Just slightly more carry, slightly more run out, depending on where the flight is. But for that as a flight, it's on the bottom end of it, but it's a slightly downward strike. You get that one there, similar on that lower half, where we get the higher flight. That one up there's 25 feet higher. Same sort of distance as 1 mile an hour difference, but the lower flights run out 6-7 yards more. So it's one of those where if you haven't got big carries to make, the slightly lower flight will, if there's any run in the ground, will end up getting a little bit further. Once you get into the depths of winter, okay, yeah, the higher flight the carry distance gets a little bit more consistent. But if your strike's that much more solid at the lower loft, then the ball speed's going to be there, and you're going to make that distance up anyway. So, but I think with the work you're doing with Stuart as well, that's just a case of monitoring it, and even it's a case of saying, right, for example, we kind of October, maybe December time, January time, however, just have a quick check and say, right, where's the flight? Do we need to just make a slight tweak to the setting just to keep it where we want it to be? It can be as simple
on the
as
course
that.
as well. Just lose yards. Right? So
You'll see it. It just won't stay at the top of the flight.
Yeah.
It'll have that sort of dipping kind of flight. But it's not that flat where it is now. If I stick it on, max total. Well, okay, the spin's a few hundred revs on the lower end. Launch angle's up the upper half of it. So, and that's also with a strike that's slightly above centre as well, which takes a little bit of spin off. So, you know, it's getting optimal run out as long as there's run out in the fairway. But certainly, yeah, if you put it on a carry-in total, yeah, using 8 yards of carry because it's a bit on the flatter side, it's the kind of shot that on a links course is amazing. So it's on the lower end, but where you're still that little bit squeezed, you shallow that out, that flight's going to come up, and we'll just see where that develops to. The beauty of these heads is we can make those changes to the loft just to optimise that flight as and when's required. But definitely there's just much more consistent ball speed at that slightly lower loft.
Okay.
So I'll make a couple of notes there.
What about this shaft in comparison to the previous one?
They do purely sartorial on this one. They do 2 different finishes on this shaft. They've got that one, which is the slightly more kind of mirrored sort of ion finish that it used to be, which is the sort of the Tour Reserve finish, and they've got the kind of the original finish, which is that sort of blue. It is purely just paint. That's what I prefer as well.
It's just my mate's got. I think you fitted him with one of those, or I can't remember who fitted him, but don't want him having the same look. Petty thing, aren't they?
No, all important though, all important. But it's amazing how much those sort of bits just affect confidence. You know, it's such a key part of the game. You've got to look forward to using something. You've got to feel good about using it, and it can be. And if you've got the option, if one just sets up for whatever reason, it could be, as you say, something completely nonsensical.
I do prefer the slightly more conservative style. Even the Acra shafts, the new branding doesn't really. I like the old, the coarser sort of.
The matte one with the silver band. Yeah,
it's a much nicer shaft to look at. So interestingly enough, where we've gone with this isn't a million miles off where that is. So it'd be interesting going back to that, having been swinging this, and see how that then ties up. Because I don't think, I don't know, the shot you hit earlier with it was pretty solid. I don't think it's far off. It could be my head. I mean, as I say, the alignment is sometimes the issue.
Well, one of the things that at the top end of the bag, and especially if you take where the driver's set up, the balance point's so very different than where we're looking at now, is that you've got the 2 clubs that are really quite different setups, whereas, you know, this and that aren't a million miles off. So actually, if you start to, you've got kind of a contrary fields and contrary timings working in there.
So if I use only this, I'm fine. If I use only that, I'm fine. It's you might well be right.
Yeah, because you've got you know, one where the balance point is right under the grip end essentially, and then that one which is similar to this where it's in that lower half. So I think some of the inconsistencies at the top are just where you've developed beyond that one, but that might be holding you back from the other bit. Okay. So it'd be interesting having been swinging this one to see where this performs now. Because I'd watch that and go, I don't see what the problem is with that club.
No, but you've just explained to me, I think it is, when I'm using the driver and hitting it well, I then go to this and I can't hit it. And it may well be that it's exactly that in the shaft.
Well, I say it's quite a different timing required to make them both compute. I think possibly that's where previously when we did this one, and the previous 3-wood shaft was more, not as counterbalance to the driver, but that Acra shaft, previously when we went longer in the bag, if we went to the same sort of balance as the irons, it just got behind you and just got out of sync. So we needed to go a little bit softer at the top end of the bag for you to be able to get the toe through and collect it. And that would probably point towards why that one isn't quite computing at the moment, because we probably need to go a little heavier and a little more in the bottom half in the shaft.
But Sam, this is straight off the shelf.
It's got a little bit of matte and ball together. It just popped it up a little. Great swing path. Lovely swing line. Really, really nice. You know,
So and the distance and the total sort of rollout of this is not far off that driver.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's just got a funky spin read. I'm just going to ignore that. It's got an incorrect spin. What I will do, just so it gets to them, I'm just going to just prop that over a little bit. I think that's just getting out the inside of the head a little bit out the heel. Only a little bit.
Am I standing too close, maybe?
Fraction. Because I mean, the one you hit earlier on, if we were to kind of bottle those numbers up, is absolutely spot on. That'll work.
So just a little further away from the ball there.
Yeah.
That felt better.
Better contact, yeah. Okay. So there's a bit of a similarity with the driver. That one, again, face to path, 0.1, dead square, and pathwise, that's just set up being a little bit closed, 3.5 in, 2 out, a little on the steeper side, and that's where there's going to be a little bit of variability in the spin. So the one you hit previously when we were hitting some of the drivers, and you went and hit that. I mean, actually, if you were to bottle up those numbers, angle of attack dead flat, 16 launch, 3, 3, 3, 4 on spin, 146 efficiency, great. No, that's from a numbers point of view, that's not beatable. The previous one, where was it? That was the first. Was that the one that came out low? Where am I looking at? Yeah, that strong swing, just a little bit more on top of, and just sort of squirted out a little bit flat. So I think it's similar. If you can shallow it off a little bit, it's interesting with the 5 wood. It's on the limit from a loft, from a distance point of view. If anything, it's going to make it very easy to flight off the fairway. The better you hit it, it's whether the spin starts to go up and starts to stall a little bit for distance. I don't think it's a million miles off. It's a question of, I guess, for this one as next club back from driver. I've got to think the question through the right way. Is it most?
Do you want to know how I ended up with this?
I was going to say, is it most important it's a good fairway wood, or is it?
I've never had a problem hitting a wood off the deck. So I've always had 3s. Started with that really old Cobra that you have on there with a Fujikara shaft. That was from Silvermere, off the shelf. 180 steady with the old shape. What you built me after that was a Titleist that I couldn't hit.
Yeah.
And the idea was that was going to double up as a driver, just couldn't hit it.
Got it.
We then went to the Epic.
That kind of, yeah, we've got the space.
And once I got
yeah.
used to that, I had no problem with that Acra shaft on it. This, what happened was, he only had the draw bias 3 wood in the Pro Shop. I was off to Spain. I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
I wanted something. And this wasn't probably that far in terms of gapping between a 3 and a 5. So I ended up with this in the bag. But I don't have a strong preference between a 3 or a 5.
Okay.
It's just got to do boom, boom, boom in terms of gap, the actual, yardage. Needs to make sense.
Okay. So let's see. So let me get a couple of. I want to take the loft down a little, go more to like a 3.5 wood, which I think is kind of where that Callaway, the original Epic Callaway Fairway, kind of played that way. It created that little bit of flight. It measured a bit more to loft than stated loft. But I'll get a similar kind of setup to that.
Yeah, actually get that this afternoon. Yeah. For whatever reason, you can't achieve it in the next 24 hours, just drop the line and resend it. Sometimes you go into it and you can follow it.
So you're going to go with a forward and just see where that flight comes
Never
out.
hit a forward.
Well, they like to call them the, well, they've just got loft on this, but like 3HL. They don't like putting 4 on woods anymore.
High launch.
High launch 3 wood, yeah.
It's a lot of, it's like car manufacturers with their badging, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got the 360. It's only a 1.8 engine or something. It's got no relevance to the engine size anymore.
I don't know what the issue is with them not wanting to put a 4 on the bottom.
It's golfers, isn't it? You don't want to. Well, I've got a mate, he can't hit a 3 wood. So if you gave him a 4 with 3 written on it, he'd be very happy. Or a 5 with a 3 written on it.
Yeah. It's a bit like with shafts for flex. Some of them have just stopped putting, they put a numerical value on rather than a letter.
So, oddly, I mean, I'd never seen these steel fibre shafts till you fitted me. I've seen a couple of guys carrying recently with the Aerotex.
Yeah, they fall in that nice place where they literally are a middle ground between graphite and steel from a playing point of view. They've got all that extra stability of the graphite of the thicker wall, but without the dead weight of some of the steel. So you haven't got to go up to the 100 odd gram to get any kind of structural strength. So they allow you to get something that's pretty stable without having to go heavy. Plenty launch, good swing line. Better angle of attack, that was only 2 degrees down. Much better. Swing, right, let's see where. Okay, that's nice. That's a nice flight on that.
Feels all right.
Okay, I'm going to just push, like we do with the drum, I'm going to push weight up. That's a good base. I'm going to push weight up a little bit more. Just sort of challenge that, because that looks like something that's quite easy to swing, which obviously there's no point making it brutally difficult. I'm just going to push it a couple of grams stronger. They're not all red.
Oh,
Okay, that one won't need that. There you go.
okay.
Okay, see one more there. Okay, that's just got a little bit out of kilter. Not quite as balanced through the ball. So it's pushed past quite a long way more from the inside. Club's just dropped in behind you a little bit. Right, to get rid of that. Okay. Actually, in terms of base weight, not. Oh, it's got a little. Not a million miles off where your current 5 wood is. I just wonder whether a little bit of where the loft is just can tend to. You've almost got to get on top of it to drive it out lower to get it going forwards, or it can pop a little bit. I think that's some of the issue. sure this has got enough. Oh, decent amount of grab there. Some of them slightly different depths of screw, which...
It's interesting when you mention torque, it's not that different to my game. You know, we have different screws, all at different torques of different manufacturers.
I remember years back, the worst time we had the train track braces, the worst thing. Worst thing is when they stuck a rubber band between your teeth. That was agony for about a week. You're on liquids for about a week, I remember that.
My daughter's just had her braces off, so she's complaining about all the things that you've just mentioned every few months.
Okay. Yeah, back at that kind of that same sort of way to that previous to the RTX that you used. Definitely cleaner through the wall. So once we kick up to the 70 odd gram mark on a fairway wood, it just starts to get a little bit behind and out of sync. That got a little bit right, but it looked a lot easier through the ball.
Ground first,
Okay.
I think.
So I think with right, let me just going to put that first one back in. I think it's again marginally different balance points, but that just swung a little bit better. I think it's going to be whether the yeah, it might well be a case of going down to 3-wood loft. Again, with the heads now, at least you can change the loft a little bit if need be on most of them. You know, I believe Callaway, having not had an adjustable head this year, be interesting to see what they decide to do moving forwards. Whether they go back to having a head with a little bit of adjustability or not, or one of their series. Things like the Epic that you originally had was such a successful head for them, and having that versatility does make a difference. Straight away strikes there. That's just ripped. Yeah. Tony said that one they got slightly more on top of it, came out a bit flatter, but really struck. You know, so I mean that one's about versus best drive about 20 yards behind one of the better drives, but the drive's got a little bit more to come out with that angle of attack developing. Something like that's come out in quite a fairly punchy flight, and technically there's a few more miles an hour to come out of it, but I wouldn't want that flight any lower. That's got a bit of run out to it, but immediately back to that, the strike straightaways there, and looking at where that's ended up on that line of the needle in the background, that's again 4 foot off line with 5 yards of shot shape. Very, very neutral, and just look really clean and simple through the ball. See one more. I just want to just cross-reference that ball flight, but yeah, that's in a really nice place. Okay, so if anything, don't need to so you just tend to creep that little bit closed at the setup, just a little bit. So just making sure you don't get shut off at address. Yeah, those last two got just a little more steered onto it. So the face has just stayed a little bit open on those last two, whereas the previous one, it's almost you freed up and allowed the club head to come through. So I'd say with where the swing is, I'd say don't overthink it, just free it up. So low but very strong contact, very straight ball flight, 0.7 face to path. So yes, it's come out a bit flatter, but you're still up, 4 yards off the previous stronger hit, but you've got great ball speed there. So these were angle of attacks just that little bit strong, down at 4.5, and we're still going to see the odd one like that. If you're getting that bit on top of it, you're going to get the odd one that squirts out low. We've had between that one at 13.5, 3.5 launch and spin. If we pick up the 6 miles an hour ball speed, you're going to be pitching it 200 and a bit, and then running out 215, 220 on kind of standard turf conditions. We're looking at 235, 240 with a solid drive on normal turf conditions. Things like, you know, that one there again, there's a bit more ball speed to come out of it, but that one had that slightly stronger spin. I think if you get that 4.5 down, there's a little bit of variation where the spin is depending on that exact contact point. And so if it gets to a couple of degrees down, then you're going to pick it up to that sort of 11, 12 launch, maybe even 12.5, 13, 3 and a bit thousand. You'll just start to see the flight window become a little bit more consistent. But to me, that one, when you just, like the first one back to it, is just a swing, just to turn, collect it, and then bang, dead straight. It just didn't look like you had to do anything with it other than just collect the ball through. And as I say, I think just as the angle of attack develops and softens just a little bit, then the flight window is going to narrow up to a more consistent pitch. And a bit like the driver, there's the ability to fine tune the loft on this. And I'm going to get one other one just to compare with, but I think with where the loft is on the Callaway head, it's just that little bit higher, so that the stronger hits where you currently are, like the first one you hit with it was in a wonderful trajectory, when these are in that little bit flatter, but the better you swing it, that'll start to feather up and not go that far, and this will start to get into that kind of mid-flight window and get the carry out of it as well. Sounds like you need me to come and stand over here. Yeah. Just want to pop that cobra. One of the reasons I'm not going to say a TaylorMade or say a Callaway is if we drop the loft, they're really quite strong on spin. So I don't actually want to kill too much spin. Keep it pretty neutral. The Titleist fairways have actually proven very strong as a general ball speed across the face, but that TSR2 doesn't sit too deep. The three is a real spin killer, so don't want to get anywhere near that one. But the TSR2 has been very good. Remember which of these?
I don't remember what I had before. Was it a 914?
Would have been either 915
915
or
okay.
917.
917 is probably more right. Yeah.
Yeah, in this series they've really, in ball speed across the face, they've really made a big jump forward. So this one, just use that white mark down like a 1/4 inch down the shaft. Very slightly heavier. Just aim a little more to the left. Yeah, that's better. Okay, solid. Nice launch and spin on that. It's come out a little flatter. That might have been a little toey, but that has taken a bit of spin off. Yeah, just a little out the toe side. Nice swing line. Contact strong out of this. So, yeah, it's interesting. I think the contact's nice and solid. ball speed's good. The one that got a little toey, the last one got a little bit toey. Actually spins down at 2.5, which is, you know, we're at 11 and 2.7 out of the Titleist head. That last one, you know, not too bad. And the first one's quite a nice ball flight as well. There's an element of, it's not a bad head actually. There's almost an element of preference of whether you enjoy hitting one versus the other. The Titleist head, we need just a touch more loft than that one from a launch point of view, just a fraction. Part of it is a visual thing of whether actually you've got quite a similar visual, if that makes any difference whatsoever. Both good heads giving you good ball speed, and that one, the last couple, worth doing a couple more of that, but that's giving you some nice ball speed off the face.
Off the toe, maybe?
Yeah, a little on the toe, just came out of it a touch. It's got a little more open on the face there. And swing line, lovely. Correction. Okay, let me pop that Titleist head back on as a comparison. Okay. Just overturned it a little bit. What it appears to be to me, with looking at that one, is I think the variability in spin's a little bit less on this head, a little bit. There's, for where we're at in terms of loft, there's a little bit more versatility to make sure there's enough flight. Ball speed's the same between them both. I mean, they're both coming off the face well, 146, 148 efficiencies, I think, on the strongest hits. Where were we? 42, there was a lower one, I think, 47. That last one there, 46. Good, you could argue, is the Cobra actually like 1 mile an hour or so quicker off the face? But the spin's a little bit more, just looks to be a little bit more up and down. Marginal, but possibly just a little bit more consistent on spin. But it is a tight call. But definitely don't need the 5-wood loft. I think for me the 4 gives us a chance to take it down a little bit if need be, or up a little bit if need be, especially having that adjustability. I think with where you're doing the swing work, we need to have that versatility to change it should we need to, which is where the fixed ones, just obviously there's nowhere to adjust them if required.
No, feels okay to me. Looks fine.
It's a very inoffensive, a very clean, simple look. Ball speed across the face, nice and consistent. And so you haven't got a lot of, the volatility in flight is more to do with if you get a little on top and close the face down, it brings the launch angle down. It's not knuckling the spin as much as one of the others. And actually, so the Cobra out of the toe really dropped quite a lot of spin off of it. I think it's just that little bit more consistent. That's a missed reading there. 4.1, 3.5. So the kind of the stronger ones at 2.7, 2.6, 2.7, one that's just a little bit toey and looped. 2.9, yeah, they just stay. That one's a little bit lower. Where is that? That's a slightly quirky spin, one that's gone right. But on the solid hits, we're in that 3,000 range regularly, rather than dipping to solid hits 2.5, up and down a touch more. So I think that's just going to be a bit more consistent.
Okay.
And so I don't think, if it wasn't for the loft, my only downside of that is I think that the better you hit it, the higher it's going to go, the shorter it's going to go. And I think then you end up, if you get that working for you, you end up in not too dissimilar place. So we just need to move that loft on a little bit to get the flight down.
Yeah.
So, right. So I'll get a couple with this, but I think with this it's more a case of I can see the head still being completely relevant, but I think we probably, from where you were in May, I think we need to develop the shaft a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think this will feel a little light in the bottom end compared to what you've just been swinging. Yeah.
So kind of what I'm getting is that hook, and I feel like I'm hitting on top of the ball rather than contacting the ball.
Yeah, I'd say a bit, and I think a bit of this just ties into exactly what we're seeing in these top two, is that having that bit more weight in the bottom helps you to take you down to the bottom of the ball, makes it harder to flick it around. Again, you can, now your path's not out to in, we're not having to kind of, not having to get a club that you can almost sort of flick the face square at it. It's now letting you flick it over and not taking you through the bottom of the board and letting you use the weight to leave the face on line. I think that's more where it's more going to be where the weight in the shaft is. I think we'll need to go a little bit heavier.
So in the old M2 with the Acro, if you'd asked me to hit a ball in the middle of the fairway, I would have been able to hit pretty much all the time down the middle.
Yeah.
And it was just a straight flight path.
But I think that was also where that just worked with the old swing pattern as well. Yeah, so I think where you can still hit those shots with it, but it almost, I think to me, is going to be one where the further down the line we go, the more you've almost got to steer at it to keep that there. Because then in terms of distance-wise, where you're, that's then 15 pushing 20 back from the good fairway wood, and then you're 20 onto the driver. That then sits in quite a nice progression.
The gapping, yeah.
But I'll put one together that has a bit more in the bottom end, I think, because that'll just let you keep developing your swing and keep getting the performance from it, rather than it almost having to curtail to get it to work. So you're going to got to push it heavier, but something that's got a little bit more guts in the bottom end as well. Make it relatively, like I say, it's not extreme, but a reasonable bit of difference. Okay.
Just felt like a better contact. But
Yeah, so it's
come
just
out
got
really
a
low.
little, if I pushed it too far, it'll get in behind you and then you've got to kind of wrap over the top of it. So I didn't go subtle in terms of change, so I wanted to find heavy quick. Okay. Okay, let me just rein that back a little bit. Just a little. So path's gone, like we saw with the driver and fairway, actually go a little heavier. The path starts to drop inside a bit more. Okay.
Cute.
It will have measured that. I'm just changing the tag on it. I will just have to. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna.
Sorry, did I go too early?
No, it's what I thought I'd switch the tags over, but it hadn't. So clearly hit the wrong button. There we go. But I could still switch it back over to the same. Change the tags over. So. Okay, let's go on. Just lost a bit too much of the bottom end on that. Right, let's shift that weight in the shaft. Thank you, around a little bit. So I think the balance point in that first shaft was better, just probably a little on the heavy side. So just need to give you a bit more bottom half at a couple of grams less.
So the only other question I'm going to ask you, I'll hit a couple at the end, maybe if you have time with this.
Yeah.
Whether there's going to be any point in anything. I mean, I've got space for one more club in the bag. Not that I need to carry an extra club.
Yeah.
But whether there's any point in having anything in between, like a 3 or a 2.
Just feels a little. I can overdo it a bit. No, that's too much tip weight. I'm just going to get it's a little less exaggerated. Sometimes you just pick something and go, that's a little, it's not quite right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, let's say, from where that flight and that forerunner is, once we've got this right, because it may well be that actually, that looks more like it. It may well be that it is more of a ball flight side of things rather than a distance thing.
Not very low.
Just a little over the top of that, mate. No, that you're having to rein it back a little bit. Okay. Yeah, you can see almost having to kind of pull the swing back a bit too much for that. Okay.
So I'd slowed it right down, hadn't I?
Yeah, and club speed's hit well, but club speed's really dropped off. Let me take the dead weight back up a little closer to that first one. Hybrids are notoriously fiddly on weighting. It's either someone's favourite club or least favourite club. They're either really good or really not good. Very little in between with them. Okay.
I'm not hell-bent on carrying one. You know, like I say, if we feel that from a gapping point of view, a driving iron or something is going to do the job, but...
Lower, but a much better timing in terms of directionally and just collecting the ball. Okay, just path got a little more into out on that, but strike's much better back at this of 70 gram weight, much better.
Leaked right?
Yeah, that would look like you made sure it didn't go left. Very consistent distance with this though. Very consistent distance.
But 210?
Around the 200, but this is based on a very much a or less run out than we've been having.
Toe.
I'm going to get a slightly different. If you go something like driving iron, it's going to come out very, very flat. Actually, let's just get a
have a look at
with
that?
the four. Yeah. Let's get the comparison on trajectory in particular.
Watch us back tonight.
Yeah, what, on YouTube?
Okay. So what's interesting with that is that's right in the same distance.
So I mean, I'm hitting this at the moment anywhere from 200 to 215, depending on.
That, yeah, in terms of what you're getting out there, I mean, and it's got a higher launch. Now, whether there's an element that's Iron's confident with, club speeds, let's just see, what was club speed with those hybrids? Yeah, just picked up a bit of club speed versus where those hybrids were. So it's really, certainly for where we're looking at with the clubs are hitting today, I think the driver fairway have got potential to, if you swing them with the same conviction as that, they're going to go that little bit further on. To me, it kind of looks like almost the flight, the shot I'm also thinking about is more one that's going to carry and land fairly soft, because I think if we go down the hybrid route, that's certainly that 19 loft, it's coming, the good ones are coming in relatively strong. So it's actually getting something, depending on what you're going to be hitting that. You know, I think, taking that shot in isolation, there's another 20 odd yards up to the fairway wood, but I think the conviction you've hit that, you're going to put another 10 yards on the driver and the fairway wood. So it's whether at because if that's going 215, it's going to carry 190 odd and chase on. So it's getting something that carries 205, 210 and lands a little softer would be where I would see there being a gap.
The gap,
which
yeah.
is more likely to be, if I pull out the flight you're getting on the fairway wood, more likely to be a higher flighted version of that. You know, there's, as you can see, that's only got the fairway wood there's only got 3 miles an hour more than that swing. Now, if you swung the fairway with the same conviction there, that's going to kick up to, low 90s. The driver's going to get to kind of mid-upper 90s. So that's then going to push that out to 230, 235, which then something around the 220, 215, 220 mark, but coming in with a bit of height, then becomes quite an attractive proposition. But I think with where you're, for where I've seen the swings at the moment, that looks to be more likely to be a lofted fairway wood than a hybrid.
Okay. So it may be worth changing the shaft on this if you think there's any, or is that actually not? Leave it alone.
Measure the loft on it at the moment. Just make sure that was zeroed off. Okay, that makes more sense. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much bang on stated loft of 18 degrees. So it's whether.
I mean, this could be me, Simon, by the way. I mean, I've only had it. What,
I do think we need to go heavier.
Yeah.
I think certainly what we've seen with the that swing change, it's such a different change in line that I think that's where your path going from out to in to in to out, you can see how much more energy you can put through it. And that's where I think, you know, with the shorter shafts and the irons, it wasn't an issue when we did the original fit. The longer we went, the more help you needed to get that toe back to the ball. So hence the counterbalance shaft from the driver, a kind of a mid balance in the hybrid and well, what we had in the Fairway before. But actually, you've gone, you know, a good 10%, you know, that being a good 10% heavy, you can see where you can use that shaft weight. I think the only question for me is whether what club head is going to give you the right flight in that bit of the bag. Now it's whether we say, well, let's get the stronger fairway and the driver in place, and you know, that's not. It might well be where we're looking kind of a sort of forward 6-wood loft. Is sort of where I'm kind of thinking we may well end up. I'll put the more lofted head on this just to get a comparison, see where that flight goes to, because I think it's worth seeing it.
So I haven't even been carrying this for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I just took it out. I just didn't feel confident to play it. Every time I've hit it, it sort of ended up in trouble. Off the tee, off the deck. How's Portugal? Did you have a nice time?
Windy, that's how it was. No, it's good. It's very good. Really nice group of people.
So I'm going there in
Lots of
November.
laughing.
So it'd be interesting if it is probably even windier and a bit cooler.
I think they had a storm go through not long after. I think back in the last week after we got back, which isn't a massive surprise based on how much wind there was when we were there. Yeah, really good location. Beautiful. Just
So you played Peña Longa.
yeah, I mean that was a we had a sort of five club wind playing Penalonga, which yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, having to hit, for me, a 4-iron is normally a 215-yard club, and it was a 166-yard club on one of the par threes, and just bulleted. I nearly hit a 2-iron. It was that strong a wind. But I mean, say at Oitavos Dunes where we stayed and played there a couple of times, being proper links golf, and just take that down a 1/4 inch just with a heavier head weight. Yeah, really pretty courses,
Bit low? No.
Little bit, yeah, just a little bit, maybe a little bit. Yeah, a little low, a little heely. Little bit behind it, that was all.
I think I tried to slow it down a bit.
Let's put just a very small amount of extra weight on that, just a very small amount. It's interesting in terms of the contact's just a little bit off. Flight-wise, it's picking it up a lot better than the hybrid was. Interesting one. My gut feel is that it's probably a case of do the fairway and driver and see as that top bit beds in, what kind of, let that settle and then just have a cross-reference. So at the moment with the hybrid, you're getting on top of it and drilling it out flat. But that one, it's kind of like we saw with the 5-wood, is whether at the moment where we're a little bit steeper onto it, if you shallow it off, it could pop a little bit. And with this one, once that loft kicks up a little bit, I think as we get a bit more consistency of the setup at the top bit of the bag, I think that's going to help to bed down and soften off and get more consistent on the angle of attack side of it. We may find ourselves, it's interesting, we may find ourselves turning the loft, going kind of 3.5 wood, turning the 16.5, turning it down to 16, and maybe going like a 19.5. It's just whether it ends up being a hybrid head or a fairway wood head.
Yep.
But I think there's certainly quite a big gain in terms of consistency with the driver. I think we start to get the top end working as a unit. I think we then reassess this club as to what we want it to do, because I think you're going to get a lot more out of the lower loft fairway wood. The driver's certainly got a lot more to come from it because you can attack it a little bit more. I'd just be a little bit nervous to say, I think, is this club or this club right now?
I can hold off.
Can't be certain which one's going to end up. Because on the one hand, you'd say, okay, if you're squeezing it, the hybrid makes more sense. But if it's coming out like a bullet, there's not a lot of use. And if at the moment we're getting a slightly flary, slightly weaker flight out of the lofted fairway wood, I'd rather be 100% sure on it, especially coming to, with the work you're doing as well. I think as that settles in, I think it'll become blindingly obvious which one's the right one. But I think getting the top two right and getting them knitted together as a unit, that you can swing the same way as you can your irons, I think we'll see quite quickly what kind of, and also getting out on the course saying actually what kind of shot, is it the higher flight that flies into a green and lands soft, or actually something that comes in a little bit lower, plays a bit more like an extension off the irons, is whether that just feels like it's going to be a more consistent shot. It'll certainly be, whatever we do, it'll certainly be a slightly heavier shaft than that. But it's just the head style's going to be the dictator of whether it's high or mid flight. And at the moment we've got low and variable, and I'm not 100% which one's going to be the right one. But I think a bit of that is the top bit's a bit more in flux than the irons because the setups are quite different. So once you bed them together, that should knit everything together pretty quickly. And then just have a follow-up to say, right, which one's the right one to be. But I think at the moment it's not obvious.
Okay.
So I think a follow-up. I mean, that's not in the worst place as of an interim at higher loft. But I think with how well you've kind of literally one hit, whack the 4 iron out there. I think if we start to get the top end working in sync with that, then where the distance is that you need and what the shot type you need is going to become pretty obvious.
Okay. That's yours.
But I wouldn't be 100% comfortable saying that's one or other is absolutely the best option right now. But I think the 16.5 fairway and that driver, there's definitely kind of good moves forward with those two. It's just the lofted wood, and we saw it a bit with this one, currently just has that ability just to pop and not go anywhere, which it just makes me a little bit nervous about it.
Yeah.
Pop that one there for the moment. You mentioned any wedge setup.
Well, no, it was just I came and I picked them up, but we didn't check the lofting lies. I haven't had any real problems with them.
Let's check those. Yeah, and I think there's good value with the driver and the fairway. The extra weight in the lower half is a good place to be. And so you can see from a swing line point of view, big developments there. So I think you say it's important getting everything knitted together so you can see the confidence with the iron swing. Let's get the top two like that, and then we'll review the in-between club from there. Yep. But no, thank you very much for coming in. We'll loop about a couple of other bits in a moment, just to top and tail. But it's been great to see such big swing improvements. It's so lovely when you see someone who's put the effort in, and it really pays off as well. So really nice.
It's amazing. Well, I'm grateful. I mean, you've changed my game. That 5 wood and that 4 wood, if you wanted me to hit 200 yards, I can kind of get the 195 or so with that. A bit more with this if I need to. Yeah. And I can shape both of them. I mean, it's not proper shaping. I'm sort of maybe hooking them a bit, but I can get round corners. Yeah. The problem I now have is I have to remember my old swing on some of the opposite elbows, which is interesting at times. It's almost like scared to hit dog legs the other way.
solve one problem, create another.
Yeah.
It's always the way with this game. Yeah.